After being called trash by my father-in-law, 3 incredible messages revealed my true worth. Ben gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white with frustration as he stared out at the road. Just a week ago, he was a mechanic with a steady paycheck and a sense of pride. Now, after the downsizing, he felt like a ghost trudging through life, stressed, ashamed, unsure. Bills piled up, and the weight of feeding Lisa, his wife, and their 2 young kids threatened to crush him. But it was the piercing words of his father-in-law, Colonel Hayes, that cut the deepest. "You're just trash," he debarked during family gatherings, his disdain palpable. Those words echoing in his mind as he navigated another tense evening. A flicker of light emerged when Ben discovered the local community center. It felt oddly inviting, a sanctuary amid his chaos. There, he volunteered to teach kids how to repair bicycles. It was liberating. Fixing things, using his hands, brought a small sense of peace in his storm. He met Joe, a veteran who had once been homeless but now thrived on determination. Joe shared stories over greasy burgers, filling Ben with hope. Then there was Marissa, a single mother who started her boutique after losing her partner. Her resilience inspired him, lit a fire he thought extinguished. Finally, Edith, the wise elderly neighbor, shared simple truths that unraveled Ben's self-perceptions. "You're worth more than labels," she'd say with a spark in her EYE. As days passed, Ben's heart swelled with newfound confidence. He wasn't trash. He was a mentor, a father, a man who could rise. But with every lesson he absorbed came the issue that loomed: his father-in-law. The next family dinner promised confrontation. The thought twisted in his stomach like a knot as Lisa prepared dinner, her silent tension wrapping around the house. Their kids played, unaware of the battles looming overhead. Yet in their laughter, Ben felt a flicker of love igniting that resolve within him. The doorbell rang, and the house quickly filled with relatives. Ben felt that familiar weight as Colonel Hayes walked in, the dominant presence engulfing the room. He felt a moment of panic rise in his heart, but deep down, he remembered the strength he gained from his mentors. Just before everyone settled for dinner, the old familiar sneer floated through the air. "You still riding on your pathetic bike fixes, Ben?" Ben clenched his fists. No more would he be a victim in this man's eyes. Suddenly, he found himself rising from the table, voice steady yet fierce. "Listen, everyone, I want to share something." The room quieted, caught off guard. For the first time, he felt the power in his words as he recounted his journey, the struggle, the hope. The voices around him faded, and he poured out the messages that had transformed him. He looked at the faces, searching for understanding. As he locked eyes with his father-in-law, though, that simmering anger remained. Would Ben's warmth and truth break through the harsh judgments that had haunted him for years? Or would he always be seen as trash? The anticipation surged around them like electricity, a new chapter breaching the surface. This confrontation could either fracture their family further or begin a healing process he desperately longed for. Ben's heart raced as he stood before his family, the weight of his father-in-law's gaze heavier than ever. Colonel Hayes' eyes narrowed, the corners of his mouth twisted in a disapproving frown. This was at a moment of reckoning. The laughter and chatter around the table faded into a dull hum, and all Ben could hear was his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. "I've been called many things," he began, trying to sound calm. "But I'm here to tell you I'm not trash." The words tasted like freedom, liberation from the shackles of shame that had bound him for so long. He held his head high, noticing a flicker of surprise flash across Lisa's face. "If you truly knew me, what I've gone through, who I'm becoming, you wouldn't ever say that again." He paused, allowing the words to sink in. He felt the room tense, eyes darting from him to his father-in-law, waiting for a reaction. Colonel Hayes shifted in his seat, his sneer faltering for a moment. "You think you've got everything figured out because you fix bicycles?" he scoffed, crossing his arms. The challenge hung in the air, thick with disbelief. But Ben could feel Joe's support, Marissa's spirit, and Edith's wisdom pulsing in his veins. "It's more than just fixing bikes," Ben continued, his voice rising with passion. "It's about empowerment. I'm teaching kids to restore something that looks broken into something that works again." "Isn't that worth something?" He took a breath, grounding himself. Each bike we fix is like a lesson in life. It can take you places, if you believe in its worth. The room fell silent. He scanned the faces around him. His sister-in-law's look was contemplative, and even a few cousins seemed to nod in agreement. But Colonel Hayes remained rigid, his fortress of skepticism unyielding. "Listen, it's easy to preach when you're the one wearing the white cape," he spat, "but this isn't some fairy tale. You're still just a mechanic." Ben's heart sank a little, but he pressed on. "An honest day's work, Colonel. These hands may be calloused, but they've built something. Community, connection, and pride. You, of all people, should understand that." A flicker of recognition passed through the colonel's eyes, a brief crack in his armor. But just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by stubbornness. The tension in the room twisted, the air thick and boiling over with unspoken words. "Are you really willing to go against family for this?" Colonel Hayes shot back, his voice low and dangerous. At that moment, Ben thought of Lisa. The kids. They deserved a father who wasn't too afraid to stand up. "I'm not against family. I want to build a better family. One where we recognize each other's worth instead of tearing each other down." His words hung in the air, filled with a weight that seemed to expand the mere space between them. He could feel the collective breath of his family, caught between disbelief and hope. Before anyone could respond, a sound broke through. His youngest son had spilled juice all over the table, laughter erupting amidst the chaos. It cut through the tension like a knife, and for a fleeting moment, everything was blurred, the anger fading in the shadow of innocent joy. But at the same time, Ben felt his heart thud painfully. Would the joy of his children's laughter be enough to soften the heart of the man who had labeled him trash for so long? He turned to Colonel Hayes, intertwining his deep rage with the warmth of love that resided within him. "Maybe this is what we all need, a reminder of what really matters." As the tension shifted, Ben's eyes locked onto the colonel's again. Would the cracks finally show through that hardened exterior? Would Colonel Hayes ever see past Ben's old label? Ben held his breath, waiting for Colonel Hayes to respond. The laughter of his children played like a distant melody, a hopeful backdrop to the chaos that surrounded the grown-ups' stark confrontation. He sensed the family on edge, their eyes darting from him to the colonel, anticipation thickening the air. After what felt like an eternity, Colonel Hayes finally spoke. "You talk a big game, but words aren't worth much in the real world." His voice quivered with contempt. "You think those kids care about empowerment? They need bread on the table." A pulse of anger surged through Ben, but he stifled it. "You're right. They need real support," he replied, keeping his tone steady. "And that's why I'm here, fighting for something real, something more than just survival. They deserve to dream. Dreams don't pay bills." Hayes barked, slamming his hand on the table, causing the remaining drinks to rattle. The playful laughter of Ben's children faltered momentarily, and he wished desperately he could shield them from this. But Ben's determination flared. "No, but they lead to hope," he said fiercely. "You taught me that when you came home from the war, you didn't let your wounds define you. You took those experiences and built a life even when things got tough." Was there something in the colonel's eyes, a flicker of nostalgia, perhaps? A split second where the walls around his heart seemed to soften? But just as quickly, that emotion disappeared, replaced by stubbornness again. Lisa's hand clasped Ben's tightly under the table. He could feel her pulse, her silent encouragement reverberating through him. It steadied him, grounding him in the fight, not just for himself, but for the family they were trying to build together. "Fine," the colonel said, his tone clipped. "You've got your little bike shop. But you're the only one who believes it's worth anything. What makes you think that counts as family?" Ben glanced around the table once more. His family seemed to shift uncomfortably, eyes bouncing between him and the colonel. He could feel the curiosity, the slight yearning for understanding simmering beneath the surface. "Because family is built on support, not just blood," he said, voice strong and clear. "It's about seeing each other, about lifting one another up. It starts with me, with my work, instilling hope in those kids." A snicker slipped from one of his cousins, but it quickly turned into murmurs of agreement. Ben's heart raced. Was this the moment he needed to forge a new connection? "Maybe it starts small," he continued, feeling emboldened. Just like those bikes. One kid at a time, one family who feels valued for venturing outside the high expectations. He dared to look directly at Colonel Hayes, hoping to reach him through the layers of judgment. If you can't support me, how can we build a better family? Silence enveloped the room. It felt heavy, almost as if everyone was holding their breaths, waiting for a crack in the Colonel's armor. But as that silence stretched, something shifted. His daughter Marissa chimed in, breaking the tension. Maybe we need to listen to him, Dad. People can surprise you. A blink of recognition flitted across Colonel Hayes's face, but then he held firm. Be careful, Marissa, he warned cautiously. You might end up disappointed. The moment hung in the air, a raw emotional wrestling match. Would this open the door to understanding? Would Colonel Hayes ever reconsider how he saw Ben, his son-in-law? Just then, the sound of a tiny crash echoed as the youngest one knocked over a chair chasing after a rolling ball, puncturing the atmosphere with innocent laughter. Could that laughter be the bridge they needed? Ben took a shaky breath, reinforcing his belief in transformation of bikes, of families, of hearts. As the laughter rippled around the table once more, he sensed a shift in energy. There was potential in the room, a chance for connection. Maybe we all need to redefine what family means together, he said gently, catching the Colonel's gaze. But would Colonel Hayes be willing to journey down that path? Would he embrace the change or stay buried in the past? The tension remained thick in the air, a tangible weight pressing down around the table as the laughter of the children provided a desperate contrast to the adults' serious conversation. Ben could feel the eyes of the family flicker between him and Colonel Hayes, a dance of uncertainty and curiosity. Could they truly see the vision he was trying to share? Ben took a moment to collect himself, searching for the right words that might soften the Colonel's stone wall of disbelief. You know, he started slowly, when I think about family, I think about the moments that shape us. It's about support and love, things we give and receive. Love isn't going to pay rent, Ben, the Colonel snapped back, his voice sharp but strained. You can't just float along on hope. But hope is a foundation, said Marissa, her voice steady yet wavering with emotion. That hope gives us the strength to face the world and tackle the hard stuff. Isn't that what you always taught us, Dad? The Colonel's jaw tightened, open to being confronted but shut off from exposing his vulnerability. Ben could see a war waging behind his eyes, struggling between the lessons of discipline and the warmth of connection. Uncomfortable silence fell again, thick as molasses, until Ben noticed Lisa's hand squeezing his tighter. It spread a warmth through him, a reminder of their shared journey of nights spent dreaming about the future. He allowed that warmth to guide him. I was thinking about how every kid we help is like adding another spoke to a wheel, he said, allowing the metaphor to settle. They become stronger, more able to venture out into the world. They never need to feel second best. Colonel Hayes' brows drew together, a fleeting flicker of interest breaking the hard lines of his face. It was a small victory, but Ben recognized it. What isn't it for you? The Colonel finally asked, his tone softer though still guarded. Why do you care? Because I remember what it was like, Ben admitted, his voice lowering. I remember feeling like I didn't belong, like I was out on my own. I turned to the community, and you know what? It saved me. I want these kids to know they have a place, to believe they can make a life for themselves. Marissa leaned forward, eyes wide and pleading. Dad, it's not just about what you see as important. It's about so much more. Can't you see that? Maybe, Colonel Hayes replied slowly, his voice tinged with the sound of conflicting emotions, hesitation mingling with contemplation. As a moment of quiet enveloped them, the children continued their games nearby. Laughter and shouts, weaving a fabric of innocence that contrasted sharply with the weighty discussion unfolding. Ben couldn't help but watch them. Their joy reminded him that change was possible. Realizing they were slipping back into silence again, he seized the moment. We share our gifts, don't we? In our work, in our families. It's time for us to show it by lifting these kids, these families together. He looked sincerely at the Colonel. I want to do that with you. Colonel Hayes took a breath, his fingers tight against the edge of the table. And what if they let you down, Ben? What if it all falls apart? Then we build it back, together, Ben insisted, his heart pounding. We don't let disappointment define us. We let connection lead us. Suddenly, the colonel let out a long, deep sigh. In that moment, Ben sensed something shift within him, a crack forming in that stoic exterior. But then, just as quickly, the colonel stood up, towering over the table. You keep pushing that. I won't promise you anything, he said, his voice firm but strained. Just know that it's a risk I'm not sure I'm willing to take. With a sinking feeling, Ben felt the urgency of inadequacy and doubt welcome back into his chest. Had he pushed too hard? Was this the moment he'd lose everything? The children's laughter faded into the background, and the conversation hung heavy between them, a point of tension that could either unravel everything or begin a fragile thread of understanding. Ben steadied himself, heart racing. Would Colonel Hayes take a leap of faith, or would this simply become another barrier between them? The answer seemed tantalizingly close and yet distant. Ben's heart raced as he watched Colonel Hayes' silhouette against the brightness of the kitchen window. The colonel was a man of duties and orders, but in that moment, he seemed lost, battling demons only he could hear. The joy from the children playing just beyond the door felt like a distant echo, a reminder of what was at stake. Dad, if you don't believe in this, then who will? Marissa's voice trembled, breaking through the heavy silence. It was both a challenge and a plea, and Ben could see the tears welling in her eyes. He wanted nothing more than to reach out and hold her, to show her they were in this as a family. You really think just because they call themselves leaders it makes them worthy? Colonel Hayes shot back, his frustration rising, yet the spark of doubt lingered just beneath the surface. What if you're wrong? What if you get hurt? I'll take that chance, Ben replied, his voice stronger now, fueled by hope. Because I refuse to stand by and let these kids drown in a world that doesn't see them. We can build something meaningful. We can change lives. A long pause stretched out, filled with the unspoken words and heavy sighs. Ben felt everyone's eyes on him, leaning in, searching for an answer, wanting desperately to break through Colonel Hayes's defenses. Why should I care? Why should I risk my reputation for something that could fail? The colonel asked, his tone now laced with vulnerability. You seem so sure, but I've seen the world's cruel edge too many times. Because that's exactly why we can't walk away, Ben said urgently. You've always taught us to stand firm for those who can't stand for themselves. Don't you want a legacy that inspires? Just then, Lisa's eyes flickered with realization, her hand still entwined with his. Think of all those years spent teaching us about service, about duty. It's not just words. It's action, your action. The colonel's expression shifted, the hardness in his features softening as he contemplated their words. For the first time, perhaps he felt the burden of his own expectations settling on his shoulders. The laughter of the children echoed in a nearby room, a siren call to hope and joy, and in that moment, Ben wished for the colonel to join them, to truly be part of the family. You talk about opportunities. What happens when the kids let you down? He challenged softly, yet his voice was a whisper of doubt laced with curiosity. Ben swallowed hard. Then we pick them back up. That's the beauty of family. We learn, we push forward, together. And for every setback, there are victories too. Marissa leaned in, eyes pleading. Please, Dad. Help us. Do it for the kids. Do it for you. The room pulsed with a charged energy, each person's breath heightened as they awaited the colonel's response. He exhaled slowly, his defenses wavering, but still not ready to yield entirely. Maybe it's not just about them, Colonel Hayes murmured, staring at the table, lost in thought. Maybe I've been scared of what it means to truly hope to trust again. The weight of the moment hung thick. Ben could see Colonel Hayes standing on the edge of a precipice, his heart on his sleeve. But would he take the leap? Can we take this chance together? Ben ventured cautiously, feeling the significance of every word. A flicker of something passed through the colonel's eyes, a flash of possibility, yet doubt still held him back like an anchor. Let me think about it, he finally said, his brow furrowing further into thought. I can't make any promises, but what? The question lingered in the air, electric with anticipation. Would this finally be the breakthrough they needed, or just another missed opportunity? Ben could hardly breathe as the children's laughter rose again, full of innocence and promise. What truth would emerge next, one of more barriers or a path toward connection? The answer felt like a heartbeat away, but would Colonel Hayes embrace this chance to change? Colonel Hayes stared off into the distance, his jaw clenched tight. The children's laughter, which once felt so inviting, now ricocheted like an echo in his mind, taunting him with the potential he had refrained from embracing. Guilt washed over him like a cool wave, forcing him to consider the weight of his hesitance, caught between duty and the yearning for connection. What kind of legacy am I leaving? He thought, his thoughts spiraling. It wasn't just about him anymore. The shadows of his own past loomed large, shaping his decisions. He had always known the risks of caring too much. Past failures and disappointments clawed at the back of his mind like persistent shadows. How could he trust these kids when he could hardly trust himself to hope for the best? Dad. Marissa's voice broke his reverie. Please, I can't do this without you. The desperation in her tone pulled at his heartstrings, gently nudging him toward a realization he wasn't ready to confront. As he glanced back at his family, he saw their faces' fierce determination mingled with undying love. Lisa's unwavering grip, Ben's encouraging nod, and the unshakable belief shimmering in Marissa's eyes. They were literally asking him to jump into a void, and all he had to do was take a small step forward. Tomorrow, he finally said, the words slipping past his lips almost as if it had a mind of its own. The room held its breath, suspended in anticipation. Tomorrow, we'll start looking for a way to help these kids. A mix of relief and excitement surged through Ben, an energy that spread like wildfire. Marissa clapped her hands, nearly bursting with joy. Yes! We'll reach out to the community. We can organize groups, start a program. She was a whirlwind of ideas and enthusiasm, as if every concept she conjured had the spark of possibility fused within. Colonel Hayes allowed a small smile to creep across his face. It was a start, but he couldn't shake the familiar tumult in his chest. But it won't be easy, he warned, his voice steady again. There will be challenges, and I want to be the one holding everyone's hand. Marissa's smile didn't waver. That's okay. We'll figure it out together, just like you taught us. Each of them seemed to lean into the vision of the work they would take on, fortified by hope. Let us get some fresh air, Lisa suggested, her voice smooth and calming. The kids are going to need to see us all working together. They stepped outside into the bright sunlight, which felt almost like a warm hug after the weight of the conversation inside. Laughter greeted them as the children played tag in the yard, their carefree joy a stark contrast to the heaviness that had just settled in the kitchen. Colonel Hayes watched as Marissa and Ben joined in, their laughter mingling with the children's. There was a stillness inside him, a faint stirring of something he hadn't felt in a long time. It was as if, for the first time, he was allowing hope to weave itself back into his fabric, one golden thread at a time. For every small moment of joy the kids brought him, there were also reminders of past failures lurking. Would he truly be able to help these kids rise above a world that hadn't given them a chance? As he pondered the path ahead, he felt something shift within him, a nascent resolve that began to emerge like a flower unfurling its petals to the sky. Beneath layers of doubt, there was a willingness to try. What if he began, a thought tantalizingly close yet just out of reach? What if this was the beginning of something greater than I ever imagined? The laughter swirled around him, and in that moment, he felt a connection, a heartbeat echoing through his chest that promised change. But with that feeling came the question that lingered like a shadow. Could he let go of his fears long enough to embrace this new beginning? Tomorrow might bring new challenges, and as he watched Marissa spin in the sunlight, laughter spilling from her lips, Colonel Hayes found himself wondering, not for the first time, what would truly happen if he dared to leap forward and trust in his family. And in himself. The morning sun poured in through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow around the table. Colonel Hayes sipped his coffee, watching as his family buzzed about, preparing for the day ahead. The energy in the house was electric. Marissa was already drafting a list of local centers they could reach out to for support. Dad, what if we set up a meeting with the community council? Ben suggested, shuffling through the papers spread out in front of him. They might have resources or even volunteers willing to help. The colonel leaned back in his chair, considering his son's idea. Would the community really care enough to step up? Was it worth the risk? But then a thought crept in. What if they don't want to help? Then we find a way around it, Marissa shot back, determination shining in her eyes. We can't let fear stop us. Look at all we've accomplished so far. Her fingers danced over her notes, brimming with ideas. He admired her tenacity, but felt that old hesitation creeping in, reminding him of the times he'd felt just as hopeful, only to be let down. It's not just about ideas, honey. Action counts, and people can be unpredictable. Lisa, who had been quietly sipping her tea, set her cup down gently. But you know what, Colonel? It's worth trying. No one said the path would be easy. What matters is that we try our best. Her words sparked something deep inside him, a flicker of courage intertwined with the weight of doubt. Perhaps trying was the first step. After breakfast, they gathered the kids outside, where the bright morning air was filled with excitement. Marissa took the lead, her infectious enthusiasm quickly drawing in everyone. She gathered the kids and explained their plan to help others like them, and how the community could rally behind it. "Who's with us?" she exclaimed, raising her arms as if calling forth an army. The kids cheered, their shouts ringing out, echoing across the neighborhood. Colonel Hayes felt a thrill flame up in his chest. He hadn't seen such unity in ages. As the children chattered, he stepped back for a moment, scanning their gleeful faces, each one a reminder of hopelessness they now could battle together. Suddenly, a weight lifted. Perhaps there was a way forward after all. "Let us split into teams," Marissa suggested. "Some can handle social media, others can create flyers. Who wants to take charge of events?" The children nodded enthusiastically, eager to contribute. "Colonel," one of the young girls piped up, a mix of innocence and determination in her tone. "You'll help us, right?" He knelt down to her level. "Of course. But I need to know you'll stick together and support one another." Murmurs of agreement spread through the group, and for the first time, he felt hope bloom rather than hesitate. This wasn't just about him. It was about them and the promise that together, they could rise above. As the laughter and chatter continued, he felt a bittersweet tear form at the corner of his eyes. The shadows from his past loomed, but for the first time, they felt a bit smaller. Could they really help these kids? Could they make a difference? When the sun began to dip, casting long shadows across the grass, he knew they would soon face challenges. They would need to face rejection and setbacks, but they would also taste victory and joy. Tomorrow, he whispered to himself, tomorrow will be the start of something. With the possibility of a much bigger journey on the horizon, Colonel Hayes glanced at his family and felt a flush of pride. Embracing the fear that had once held him back now felt like a pivotal choice. Just then, a sudden commotion broke out among the kids. "Oh, what is going on over there?" he asked, gesturing to the fray. His heart raced as he prepared for whatever challenge lay ahead, unsure if he was ready. Was it just their laughter, or was it something more that would test the resolve they had built today? Colonel Hayes walked toward the group of children, his heart pounding in his chest. The ruckus drew closer, overlapping voices swirling in confusion. Laughter mixed with shouts. As he approached, he spotted Ben trying to calm a pair of younger children. One of them, a girl named Lily, stood clutching her scraped knee, her face streaked with tears. "What happened?" the colonel asked, kneeling beside her. "I was running and tripped." Lily sniffed, her voice choked, but her eyes sparkled with the remnants of excitement. "Let me see." He gently lifted her chin, examining the scrape. "That's just a tiny scratch. A bandage, and you'll be ready to go again." Marissa stepped forward, her brow creased with concern. "Maybe we should take a break? We can head inside until she's feeling better." "No," Lily exclaimed, the fire of determination flickering back into her eyes. "I want to help. We want to give up just because I fell." The colonel smiled despite the swirl of worry within him. It was this spirit, this resilience, that would carry them through the tough moments. "That's the spirit, kiddo. But we can't have you hurt while leading the charge." He gave her a gentle nudge and she giggled, brushing off the incident as if it were just a little hiccup. The group steadied, memories of their earlier harmony flickering back. They settled down, and Marissa seized the moment. All right, how about we have our first core meeting before we split off? Let us brainstorm, see what we can do together. Colonel Hayes looked around at the energetic faces lit by fading sunlight. It was time to gather momentum, put their plans into action. He raised his own voice, simple yet firm. All right, everyone. Let us huddle up. As they leaned in, some giggling, others shifting nervously, he felt the weight of hope building again. Today is just day one, he began, but it's also when we make our mark. We're not just kids from the neighborhood, we're a team. We're here to support others, but first, let us talk about what that looks like. Ben was bouncing in place with ideas tumbling out of him. What if we start with a bake sale? Everyone loves cookies. And we can donate the money. Or a car wash. Piped up another child, Jake, who lived a few houses down. My dad has buckets that we can borrow. Excitement charged the air, and the colonel could feel it pulsing through each child's words. They were hungry to act, to build something not just for themselves, but for their community. The chatter grew into a symphony of ideas, and for the first time in a long while, Colonel Hayes felt the tight grip of fear start to loosen. Lisa appeared beside him, her gentle smile grounding him. Look at them, she whispered, squeezing his arm. They're moving forward in their own way. You did this. He shook his head softly, ever so slightly. No, they did. They're the ones showing bravery. As they stood there together, watching the whirlwind of energy before them, the colonel's heart swelled. He had made commitments before, but this felt different. Not just to an idea, but to these kids, this mission. Suddenly, a loud cheer erupted from the group as Lily raised her arms, inspired. We can do this. For our friends. And everyone who needs us. Her words thundered through the air, igniting even more passion. But just then, a shadow slithered across his thoughts, and that familiar hesitation tugged at him. What if the community turned them away? What if their efforts fell flat? Would it all come crashing down, just as it always had? Colonel Hayes pushed the thought aside. Remember, this will take time. We'll have ups and downs, but when we do this together, we're stronger. Together. Echoed the kids in unison, their voices bright and unified. As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue around them, the colonel felt something shift inside him. There was promise in this chaotic energy, a chance for transformation they held in their hands. But deep down, he silently wondered what challenges lay ahead beyond the sweet joy of today. Before he could ponder further, another voice broke through the cheer, this one serious, filled with urgency. What about the adults? What if they say no? He turned, meeting the worried gaze of Marissa. The question hung in the air like a weight. Would they actually find the support they needed? Tomorrow, we'll face that question. Together, Colonel Hayes replied, determination firming in his voice. As the kids dispersed into plans and laughter, he caught sight of the distant horizon. Something was brewing, something important. The real battle had yet to unfold, and he felt both anticipation and trepidation build within him. Tomorrow would not only bring answers, but challenges that could shift the very foundation of what they hoped to accomplish. With his heart racing at the thought, he realized they had only just begun. Would the community welcome their efforts? Would they rise above the fears that loomed ahead? The next morning dawned with a brilliant blue sky, a sharp contrast to the knot of unease twisting in Colonel Hayes's stomach. He stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his uniform with slightly trembling hands. Today was not just another day, it was the beginning of a journey that could either uplift these kids or lead them straight into a wall of adult skepticism. The thought of setbacks gnawed at him, but there was no turning back now. With each step he took toward the community center, he felt more like a soldier gearing up for battle. The buzz from the previous day lingered in the air, a potent mix of hope and fear. He could already see a few kids gathering outside, their chatter echoing down the street. Hey, Colonel! Ben shouted, waving enthusiastically. The others joined in, running toward him with the same fiery spirits they had the day before. It was infectious, pulling him in like a magnet. Good morning, team, he replied, matching their energy with a smile he hoped looked more confident than he felt. Ready for our big meeting today? Yeah, let us do it. Lily exclaimed, Still sporting her little bandage, but standing taller than ever. As the group gathered inside, the colonel felt a sense of pride blooming within him. They crammed into the small room, some sitting cross-legged on the floor, others bouncing in their seats, practically vibrating with anticipation. Marissa took charge, positioning herself near the whiteboard. Okay, let us brainstorm how we're going to present our ideas to the adults. They have to see what we're doing, she declared. Ideas poured out like a waterfall. Jake suggested a poster campaign, while Ben proposed an open house where families could come and see the kids in action. Colonel Hayes could hardly keep up with their enthusiasm. Just as the kids were starting to gain momentum, a shadow broke through the sunlight streaming through the window. Mrs. Gonzalez, an older woman from the neighborhood, stepped in. Her expression was serious, catching the kids off guard. "Colonel Hayes," she said, her voice firm, "may I speak to you for a moment?" The group quieted down, eyes darting between them. Hayes felt a jolt of panic. Had they done something wrong? Absolutely, Mrs. Gonzalez. Kids, hold that thought. He followed her to the back of the room, his heart pounding. "I just wanted to say," she began hesitantly, "that I think what you're trying to do with these kids is important, but you need to be ready for the backlash. Not everyone will support this. Some may even laugh at you." That knot in his stomach tightened again. "I understand. But these kids are full of potential. They have so much to offer." Mrs. Gonzalez nodded, her expression softening. "I can see that. Just be prepared. You might face some criticism, but the right support could help you all rise above it." He took a deep breath, absorbing her words. There was truth in her warning, but was it enough to deter him? Returning to the kids, he could see them looking expectantly at him, their bright faces reflecting hope. "Everyone, let us focus on what we can do. We might run into people who don't believe in us, and that's okay. What matters is that we do believe in ourselves and in each other." The group erupted into murmurs of encouragement, the earlier tension transitioning into a wave of renewed spirit. Marissa stepped back up and spoke with determination. "If we can show them what we're capable of, they can't ignore us." "Exactly," Colonel Hayes added, adrenaline boosting his confidence. "Today is just as much about showing the community who we are as it is about helping others." As they exchanged ideas again, the colonel spotted a shadow at the doorway. A couple of adults lingered outside, their expressions unreadable. He felt a pulse of uneasiness. Would they be supportive, or would skepticism stop them right in their tracks? With the kids pushing ahead, dreaming big, he wondered how exactly they would prove themselves. Could they hold together, stand united against skepticism, and rise to the challenge? Just then, one of the adults stepped forward, seeming more curious than confrontational. "Can we join your meeting?" he asked. The colonel's heart leaped, but only time would tell if this was the first sign of acceptance or just another obstacle. Would they take this chance to rally the community behind them, or would they have to face rejection head-on? Ben looked around the room filled with energy as the kids buzzed, their dreams spilling over into the air like confetti. He felt a rush of pride. This was no longer just about him, this was far bigger. The community, the children, the journey, they were all entwined in a shared purpose. And at the helm was Colonel Hayes, navigating through uncharted territory. "All right, team, let us make this count." Ben beamed, waving his hands to pull everyone's attention. "We stand here today not just as kids, but as a force of support, encouraging one another to believe in our potential. The adults need to see that." Marissa, with a sparkle in her eyes, turned to her peers. "Let us show them how we can make a difference. They need to hear our ideas and feel our passion." The atmosphere thickened with anticipation, and Ben felt Colonel Hayes backing him up, his expression quietly prideful. As a few adults trickled in, each of their expressions tinged with curiosity, Ben felt the initial wave of discomfort in his stomach. Could they accept this new and vibrant energy? "Hey there, everyone," Ben called out, forcing himself to stay steady. "We've got an exciting project in the works, and we would love your thoughts. We want to create a program focusing on mentorship cycling for kids in our community, starting with our bake sale and car wash." Mrs. Gonzalez stood by the door, her eyes brightening, a tangible sense of encouragement surrounding them. These kids truly have heart. They want to help others. That's what it means to come together as a community. Colonel Hayes nodded, acknowledging Mrs. Gonzalez's words, and pushed forward. And it's not just about those of us talking. We're committed to creating opportunities for the kids, yes, but also bringing hope into the lives of those who need it. If we can inspire one kid, maybe we can inspire the family. Willow, a shy girl seated at the front, raised her hand timidly. I might not have much to say, but I want to help. I believe we can give others a place to be heard, just like we have. A wave of warmth washed over Ben. That simple message spoke volumes about the journeys they had all shared. The colonel stood taller, a spark of joy lighting his face. That's it right there. Let us not allow fear to dictate our path. Together, we can harness our voices and build opportunities that will last beyond this meeting. With each message of support echoing through the room, a new resolve began to blossom. Colonel Hayes felt something shift within himself, a desire to fight not just for these kids, but for the very legacy he'd been worried about losing. If this new venture could foster hope for others, perhaps it could offer healing for himself too. I'll support you, he finally said, voice steady yet rich with emotion. But we must remember it won't always be easy out here. Rejection may loom, but we'll face it together. That's what family does. The room erupted in cheers, an infectious sense of excitement palpable in the air. They saw a new path unfolding before them, a support system built not just on blood, but on something deeper, shared dreams, collective hope, and a community that refused to be cast aside. As the meeting wrapped, plans began to cement, and time flowed with ease, laughter and creativity dancing together. When they finally stepped outside under the sun's calling warmth, Ben felt lighter. Unexpected challenges were bound to arise, but they would stand as one, ready to create change. The joyful energy buzzed around them, children running, shouting, motivated, and alive. In that moment, Ben caught the eye of Colonel Hayes, who stood tall with pride, taking in this beautiful transformation. There was no more lingering resentment, no angry words tossed aside. Only the present, filled with laughter, promise, and a newfound connection, the ties that had once felt fragile now unwavering. Remember this day, Colonel Hayes murmured, a smile emerging subtly but confidently. Today is the birth of something real. Sweets, cookie sales, and kids helping kids. The laughter cascaded around them, and as Ben watched the kids play, hope unfurled like the petals of a blooming flower, embracing the fullness of possibility. The day awaited bright and new, and right then, he knew it was time to traverse onward. The struggles ahead would become triumphs, molding them into something beautiful alongside laughter and love. As they moved into the future, embracing the connection they'd fought for so hard, Colonel Hayes began to glimpse the father-in-law he had always wanted to be. Take heart, he thought, join the movement and believe. And you, reader, it's time to connect. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you to your core. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help keep this wonderful journey alive. Comment your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending, and let us share these feelings. Don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation in their lives. True change starts with you. Join us.